Blake Nestle, Greta Thunberg. It's plain to see that humanity has had an impact on the ecology of the planet. However, I do not think the scaremongering done by some, AOC's 13 years till we're all dead springs to mind, does a service to the cause of environmental protection. While I do not intend to disparage any child, I also don't think any child has much to say of value about anything academic. Thus, I would deem anyone lining up behind a child, particularly in something as complex as climate science, to be rather foolish. I believe she is well-intentioned, but ultimately ignorant. And if one's goal is to advance a cause, I don't really see how championing a child who has yet to finish high school, much less the higher education necessary to have an informed opinion on this matter, will help that aim. In a discourse that requires scientific appeal, I see her primarily injecting sentiment, and I feel like that's a disservice as opposed to a boon. Your thoughts? I take great exception to almost everything you said, so let's start breaking it down. Greta is not a scientist, and she's not claiming to be. What she's protesting is inaction on the part of the people who should be acting. And that is where her voice is actually having an impact. She's not trying to convince anybody that climate change is real. She's not trying to stand up and convince people with the science that this is true. She's coming at this, as far as I understand, from the point of view that this is just true. And if this is true, or even parts of this are as true as appear to be, then why is it that you and you and you and you are not doing anything when it's in your power and in your zone of responsibility as world leaders to do something about it or do more about it? Because have we reacted with a correct level of response to the potentially existential threat of man-made climate change? Not if it's real, we haven't. Not even close. And there's a little bit of a fantasy in your in your question where you say, primarily injecting sentiment, and I feel like that's a disservice as opposed to a boon. I would like to ask you what movement of people has ever existed in the entire history of mankind that was based purely and only on reason and logic and rationality. There isn't one. Groups of people do not respond to rational discourse and logical reasons to do things. They have to have an emotional component or they just don't commit. You can understand why something is good for you, but until you take the commitment step of investing yourself in a thing and committing yourself to something, and that's an emotional thing, it doesn't connect with people, right? This is not how I think the world should be. This isn't what I like. I've been talking critical thinking for 6-7 years now. If it was just a matter of pushing science and logic and reason on people, then our whole planet should be the most rational, Vulcan-type planet that ever existed. We understand logic, and we have for years. We understand reason. We understand science better than we ever have in our history. Yet, what do people do in general? Ignore it. Leave it alone. Don't think about it. Don't have time for it. A litany of things. But when you appeal to people's emotions, if you want to motivate people, if you want to inspire people, if you want to get people going on something, you have to make an emotional connection. I stand by that in any circumstance. You also said, I don't think any child has much to say of value about anything academic. I'm totally going to push back against you on that, and I'm actually just going to read what I wrote here because I think this encapsulates it best. I said, it would do some good for you to take a look at some of the great names in history and see just how young some of them were when they started accomplishing great things as child prodigies in general. Dismissing children and young adults outright of being incapable of contributing anything significant to academia, which is what you said, is the kind of biased nonsense that has stopped forward progress of our species. For every one of these child prodigies who could speak Greek, or solve differential equations at age 8, how many more had their parents put the kibosh on their talent because they didn't think their children were capable of what they were truly capable of? I'm talking about Blaise Pascal, Maria Agnesi, Mary Curie, Felix Mendelssohn, John von Neumann, computer science, anyone? And many others, all of whom went on as adults to push our knowledge of science and the arts forward. And there were many, many others, okay? Picasso was drawing like Raphael as a child in school. I mean, children are capable of amazing things if we just get the hell out of the way. So this blanket judgment that children have nothing to contribute to academia is frankly bullshit. And history proves you wrong. This isn't my opinion, I'm pointing to actual historical precedent here. Now, obviously, child prodigies and child geniuses are few and far between. In a general sense, children need lots and lots of education, and informed opinions are not possible for many of them until they get to older teen or young adult ages. But to just dismiss all of them out of hand because they're children is incredibly biased and very black and white thinking. Now, having said all that, is Greta Thunberg a child genius? I have no idea. I know she's on an autism spectrum somewhere, but that's all I really know about her as a person. However, I also know that she has put herself out there in a way that very few other people her age are even capable of doing. And she has shouldered the responsibility of trying to do something about a situation that could potentially be, for her and every other person on the planet, a truly existential threat to our entire species. So I have a little bit of a hard time with adults who look at her and go, who is she? Why should I bother listening to her? And why? And children don't matter anyway. Children should be seen and not heard. This kind of crap. Well, if you want to go step up and take her place, please do. I think all of us need to step up a little bit more on this particular issue, actually, including myself, right? I am far from the person who can point any, fickle finger of accusation at people that they're not doing enough about climate change, because I'm at the head of the line of people who are not doing enough about climate change. But the last thing you're going to see me do is try to tear down the people who are. And yes, I do feel a little bit strongly about this. So that's my take on that, Blake, and you can take that however you want, but really at the end, all I'm really trying to say is anybody who has a voice and is speaking up on this issue because they are concerned about themselves and the rest of our species deserves to be listened to, and they deserve to not be ridiculed because of their age, their gender, their race, their color, creed, whatever. Because if there is any issue that we have ever faced that has truly something to do with all of us, it's climate change. And at the end of the day, even if the science is wrong, is it really that big of a problem that we are, pushing forward on alternative energy sources that are better for our environment and better for us? I don't think it is. I think we should be pushing great guns on this stuff anyway. So that's my take on that stuff. Take it or leave it, agree with me or not, but that's where I'm at.